All right, here we go. Episode 2 of the New Mexico Sports Den with Will and James. So, yeah, we did find out, James, the good news that you and I were the top rated podcast at the New Mexican last week.
I
So,
know, man, and it only took us 1 week.
we're
First
busting
time
down
out, man.
doors and we're just making it up as we go along.
Yeah, I know, man. The rest of these guys, they get like Deb Holland. They have all these scripted podcasts. Us, we just wing it.
Tell you what, man, I felt like sending Joe Rogan a press release saying, "We're coming for you, big boy. We're taking over the internet." In fact,
Wow,
we
man.
broke the internet last week. I think we had
Wow,
about 350 viewers on YouTube, which is crazy.
you get a little taste of success, and then it just goes straight to your head there, huh?
I'm thinking about asking for a raise because I mean, look, if we're going to be big time stars, you know, no one even knows who we are. But if we're going to be in front of the camera now, you know,
Yeah.
that requires like I have to actually brush my teeth now, brush my hair. It's gonna be tough.
I know, man, and you're not used to that.
No, I brush my hair. What are you talking about? All right, so this week there's a lot of stuff going on. We're going to start you off with some Lobos stuff. They had a big weekend last week, and of course, their next 2 games are absolutely huge road tests for them. And then later this week, we got the state swimming and wrestling championship events, Rio Rancho and Albuquerque, and then it's the last week of the regular season for high school basketball, which means it's all coming down to the nitty gritty. So basically, you and I are going to be working a few more hours than 40 hours this week, which is the best part about our jobs.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Yeah, but Lobos picking up a huge win over the weekend. They played Utah State in the pit. It sold out, huge game. They had a couple of really big injuries in the game. Mustafa Amsil, the starting power forward, didn't play, and CJ Nolan suffered a concussion. And neither one of those guys is a for sure bet for their game on Wednesday night at Boise State, which is another absolutely huge game for them. It's a quad 1 opportunity for UNM, which there aren't a lot of this season. But if they get a quad 1 win there, I think it's entirely reasonable to expect that team to jump into the top 25 the following week. Not to mention by the top 30 in the net and the Ken Palm. So that the team has got it rolling right now.
Yeah, for sure. You know, and it was kind of surprising. I mean, I think we were kind of anticipating that that UNM would get into the top 25, and then they miss out by 20 points to Louisville, the former home of one Richard Pitino. You know, I know it was maybe a decade ago and everything, but how nice is that for symmetry? It's Louisville that keeps them out of the top 25 this week.
A job that he was flirting with last year too, which and I'm telling you, like we mentioned last week, it's just a matter of time before some of these schools come knocking on his door if they haven't done it already. If they're reaching out to his agent saying, "Hey, there's a job opening in Indiana. Maybe you'd want to take a look at that." So, yeah, that's going to be it's always a crazy end of the basketball season, whether you're a New Mexico State fan or a Lobo fan. If your team is doing well, there's a couple of things about it. One is, do you actually get into the NCAA tournament, and where we're going to be seated? Do we win a conference championship? And most importantly, is the coach going to leave for another job?
That always kind of takes precedence over everything. It's the annual will he or won't he,
right?
Question. But I think you know it's funny even seeing stuff like online and Twitter. I think people are almost resigned to or there's a certain segment of the fan base that is resigned to the fact that Pitino's probably not coming back next year.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, it's kind of interesting to see they're like preparing, they're girding themselves for the inevitable, but in the hopes that maybe it doesn't happen. I mean, you know, I think you know people kind of shift back to last year, right after toward the end of the NCAA tournament in early April, when it appeared that Pitino was going to be heading back to Louisville, and people were already kind of bracing themselves for the worst. And then it didn't happen. And I mean, who's to say that doesn't necessarily, lightning doesn't strike twice in this situation? But I seriously doubt that's going to happen. I mean, when you look at some of the jobs that we already know that are going to open up, Indiana, Miami, and obviously once the dominoes start falling, you never know what other jobs are going to open up. You just feel like, you know, if there's a year for him to kind of strike, this is it.
Yeah, and you hear a lot too about how UNM is a stepping stone position for head coaches, which is entirely not true. That's something that is reserved for schools like Utah State, where seems they lose a coach every other year to a bigger program. But in the last 50 plus years of Lobo basketball, you've only had 2 coaches leave for what is considered a better possibility. And that was Dave Bliss left for Baylor, which Baylor wasn't Baylor, the Baylor that is now.
No, it was a reclamation project there.
Right. And then, of course, Steve Alford went to UCLA, and you absolutely cannot blame him at all for taking that position. But the rest of the coaches either quit or got fired. And that includes, Bob King stepped down. Norm Ellenberger got run out of town for Lobo Gate.
Yeah.
Charlie Harrison, Gary Colson got fired. Paul Weir got fired. Craig Neal got fired. Yeah. And so this is not a stepping stone position. By and large, when a coach comes here and does well, they tend to stick around for a little bit. Bliss was here for a while, and then of course you turn around and you had the run that Steve Alford had. 6 years felt like a long time, and I think in some ways, this guy, Coach Pitino, has done a pretty good job in the short amount of time here. And if he leaves, you can't blame him. Just be happy that he brought the fans back. But going into this week, it's just another opportunity for this team to really assert itself amongst the all-time great teams in Lobo basketball history. They're 22-4 right now. And it's like the story that I wrote that came out in today's paper. The huge blemish for these guys is the loss to New Mexico State and the loss to San Jose State. But other than that, this team is beating teams on the road. They've got great chemistry, and they've got balance, and they are fun to watch. So it makes you wonder, is this the year that they not only get out of the first round, but get to that second weekend in the NCAA tournament?
Oh, don't do that. You're setting everybody up for the fall. I don't know how tragic that is, man. I think people still haven't forgotten about 2014, or Alfred's last year. I think it was 2014, when they were the 3 seed and everybody had them going to the Final Four, and you couldn't get past Harvard.
Yeah.
So I think people are, once you've been through that once, you're a little bit more hesitant to jump back on that bandwagon. I think Lobo fans, having forgotten what that's like, I haven't forgotten what that's like. I think they're going to be a little bit more hesitant to say that this is the year. But I think a point that you brought up that maybe underscores that point is, CJ not playing in the second half, not having Amsel out there, and they still were able to beat a really good Utah team. And that wasn't like they caught Utah State on a bad day, and it wasn't like UNM played poorly either. They were just a little shorthanded with a couple of guys, and they were able to win the game. Great performances there, especially by True Washington, to kind of pull that out. But I think it just speaks to the depth that they have, the fact that they can lose a couple of guys and really not miss much. And some of these other guys that maybe haven't gotten as much playing time kind of stepped up and were serviceable, if not good.
Yeah, and look, they're playing Boise State on Wednesday night. Boise was the preseason favorite in the Mountain West, and to some extent, Boise State is underachieved. They're a team that has lost 5 games in conference. They're a good, solid club at home, but they've had some struggles on the road. And UNM's got the best road record in the Mountain West right now. They're 6-1 in games away from the pit, which is probably one of the most impressive things you can say about that team. But look, the win over Utah State dropped their magic number to 3 to clinch the conference. So any combination of their wins and Utah State losses amounting to 3 ends the race. So tomorrow is a big win. It's like you and I talked about beforehand. I think this game is one they probably wind up losing because, quite frankly, this game means a lot more to Boise State than it does to UNM. UNM can afford a loss, not that they're looking to take one. But if they're going to lose a game at any point between now and the end of the regular season, that's it. Because look, you got San Diego State, a team that I think if I'm sure of the 350 people that watched us on YouTube last week, I'm sure there's innumerable fans from Viejas Arena watching us. But I think San Diego State's kind of a paper tiger. They've been skimming by and scraping by against some of the league's not very good teams, and they're vulnerable. They lost 7 players off that team last year, and they're just rebuilding with talented incoming guys. But that's not San Diego State that we all know. You look at the front of the uniform, think, man, that's the Aztecs, but it's really not. The Lobos are clearly the best team in the Mountain West Conference, and the next 2 games are an opportunity for themselves to really, really just put the hammer down in that conference.
Do you really think that? Do you think this is a week where they split, or do you think this is maybe one of those situations where, you lose two in a row, and all of a sudden, you're having a battle going into the last week of the or the last 2 weeks of the season just to maintain that edge that you had?
Yeah, I think they'll be happy to get out of these two games with a split. You come back home, you play the Air Force, which is look. I've seen that. I was at the first Air Force game. That's just not a very good team. They're not the dangerous Air Force team that can knock you off. They're on a historically bad run this season. And then you close out with Nevada and UNLV. And Nevada's dangerous. Nevada's in a position where they could potentially move up to as high as fifth in the final standings, get that first round bye. But look, no matter how you slice it, the Lobos are the best team in a conference that it's probably the fifth, maybe the sixth best league in the country this year. A conference that could probably send 3, maybe 4 teams to the NCAA tournament. So it's a chance. Look, it's a chance for UNM to finally kind of hang their hat on something and make my buddy Dave, see my Bob Davie bobblehead. They need to have a Richard Pitino bobblehead before he leaves. Although it looks like Bob's got some jaundice there. He's a little yellow.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
Kind of matched how sickening it was for him to be here for as long as he was.
Yeah. I miss his fireside chats. Boy, the media session every Monday or Tuesday with Bob Davie was like, everyone just sit back and listen to those Texas A&M and Notre Dame stories about how great things used to be.
Yeah, the Todium could have been on fire, and he still would have been wrapped some way.
Oh, man. Oh, back when I was at Texas A&M, I tell you what, it was such a good time. Well,
Bob, the stadium's on fire. Yeah, that's
I'm sorry you're here, Bob. Jeez. Yeah, I know New Mexico. You would always talk about how hard it was to recruit to the state of New Mexico because you fly into the Fort Worth area, you fly into Denver, wherever, and you're over civilization. You come to Albuquerque and you're over 2 hours of brown desert before you get here. It's like, well, some of us kind of like it that way there, Bob. But he clearly didn't. It was not South Bend. Instead of flying over the Golden Dome, you're flying over the Rio Grande.
I wonder if he talks to his family about the good old days at UNM.
Yeah, no.
It's almost like there's like an 8-year gap in his life.
Like
he was in a witness protection program.
One time it was asked of him what his favorite app was on his phone because he'd always walk around the practice field before and after practice just to kind of get time to himself. He said, my favorite app is messaging. So he was talking about the actual texting app where he could text people, but like, that's not an app, Bob. I know you're a dinosaur. I just like how when you push that start button, the whole thing turns on. It's like, oh my golly, this guy. So anyway, there you go. That's New Mexico basketball in a nutshell for you. And they got a huge game Wednesday. We'll see. They've got some adversity to deal with. And the pundits, the bracketologists have them basically anywhere. Most of them have as an 8 or a 9 seed in the NCAA tournament, which is just a kiss of death because you're playing a pretty solid team.
Yeah.
You're playing a team that's in the middle of the pack in like the SEC or the Big Ten. Then you got to turn right around and play a number 1 seed, which means Alabama or Auburn or Kentucky or somebody. So,
yeah. Well, I'll ask you this: where do you think this team tops out at as far as a seed? Say they run the table and they end up, and they win the conference tournament. So let's just say they run the table through the tournament and they get to that would put them at what, about 30 wins then?
Yeah, they'd be 30-4 if they actually finish out the 5 games and then sweep through the Mountain West tournament. Then you're talking about a team that climbs probably as high as 13 or 14th in the final rankings, which could conceivably give them a top 4, 5 seed. And I think if you're going into the NCAA tournament, it's just like the high school tournament. If you can be a 6 seed or a 7, then you avoid the top seed right off the bat. You can play if you're 6, you're starting off against an 11. You win that game, you're playing the 3 seed if they survive the first round. So that's the best way to go. That's the easiest road to get into the Sweet 16. But look, Lobos were in that position last year. They were an 11 seed playing a team like Clemson that we all thought they had a shot with, and Clemson just mopped the floor with them.
Yeah.
Clemson gave UNM the blueprint for what they wanted to be this year, which is bigger on the wings with bigger guards. And, here's the thing is over this past weekend, Wisconsin played Purdue in a big Big Ten game. And Wisconsin's best player is John Tonje. Remember, John Tonje actually, he announced that he was coming to New Mexico through the transfer portal. And then when he did, or he backed out at the last minute and wound up at Wisconsin. Now
Wisconsin.
he's one of the top players in the Big Ten. It makes you wonder if John Tanjay comes here, they probably don't sign Philip Borovichian. And then they'd have a 6'7" dynamic scoring machine that goes along with Donovan Dent and Nelly Jr. Joseph. It makes you wonder just how good this team would have been had Tanjay come here instead of gone to the Big Ten. But we'll never know.
Yeah, but that's it's interesting that you see him potentially as a top four. It seems to me, especially with a lot of the metrics that are out there, it I almost feel like even if they did run the table, or if they get to 27, 28 wins, I feel like this is at best a 6 or a 7 seed. I'm not sure, because for the longest time, I mean, even as they were even as they were going on that little winning streak at the beginning of the year or the conference season,
Mhm.
they didn't deviate much from that 10 seed. It seemed like everybody kind of had them stuck in that 10 or that 11. And then finally, it seems like over the last couple of weeks, they've gained some traction and now they're starting to move up a little bit. But, I'm not so confident that they'll move up into a top four seed. Even if they did get to 30-4, it seems to me like they'd be a team that ends up 5 at the best. Maybe
Mhm.
6 is probably where they end up, regardless of how things play out.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I know that we went to Patino's press conference before they headed off to Boise this morning, and he did mention how they had a staff meeting this morning to talk about the future of the basketball program, which essentially was who comes back next year, because everyone's on a 1-year contract. Do you have enough money in the NIL piggy bank to bring back True Washington and Donovan Dent? Who can you bring in? What kind of pieces do they need? So I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall for that conversation to see, because I'm sure John Roth, the Kurt Roth, the commissioner,
Yeah.
the NIL director guy, I'm sure Kurt's probably sitting in the corner. Just whenever they bring up a name, they just look over at him. If he shakes his head, it's like, well, yeah, we're gonna have to go find somebody else then.
And don't forget that there's still that legislative piece out there where they could get that $2.5 million infusion
Yeah,
into their NIL account, which could help them. But I
huge.
mean, you just wonder, are they getting ahead of the curve, or are they just merely keeping up with everybody?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so that'll do it for Lobo Talk this week. We're going to get into some high school wrestling and swimming. I'm going to press James about the idea of why wrestlers aren't allowed to jump off the top rail and smash each other with chairs. That's the big question moving into the state tournament, state wrestling meet this weekend, WWE New Mexico style. We'll be right back after this.
Alrighty, and we're back now. Thanks for the long pause there. I'm taking over for the moment because Will needs a minute to collect himself because he learned the dangers of owning a house. So
Yeah. Yeah, all I could say is if you have an HVAC system in your house, which we all do, make sure it's taken care of,
yeah,
because the hamster wheel in mine just broke and it's not cheap. So
yeah,
while we're doing this, the HVAC unit in there is he's breaking my piggy bank and stealing all my money. But you
yeah.
got to
Poor
do what you
Will.
got to do.
It's a good thing we make a lot of money to do this, right? Or
Right? Yeah.
unfortunately.
It's a good thing the newspaper industry pays us so incredibly
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
That's
So
why I
so
married a that's why I married a wife who actually makes money. So,
that's right, man.
you
That's
know,
right. There you go. I haven't quite gotten so lucky. I need to figure that part out, but.
good
But
night.
anyhow, so I guess we'll switch gears over from one version of basketball, the college game, to the high school ranks here before we move on to the state events going on this weekend with swimming and wrestling. Um, this is a big week just because it is the last week of the regular season, and so teams are fighting for position, for seeding, and also fighting for their seeds. And I think we'll start with the big public school in Santa Fe with Santa Fe High. This is maybe the biggest. It's the biggest week for them in quite a while, and I'll tell you this. Actually, it might be the biggest week in the program's history because I learned this because I spent 3 hours researching this last night. I'm going to ask you a question, Will, and I'm sure you don't know the answer, but you can try anyway.
Well, that's a way to cast some confidence in my direction there. Well, I'm going to ask you, but I know you don't know the answer. You sound like my 10th
So,
grade history teacher.
okay.
Yeah.
So Santa Fe. I will ask. This is the question: how many times has Santa Fe High won their district title outright?
What, in the entire history of the school?
Outright. They
My
without time.
gosh. Wow. Whoo. I'd say Probably like 8 or 10. I'd say eight.
You are 8 too many.
No way. They've never won
They've
it.
never won the outright district title.
That's
In
crazy.
since
Wow.
the advent of the 4 classification system, they have never won their district title outright. Even the year that
Wow.
they won the state title in 1978, they tied with Albuquerque High and had to go to a playoff. Matter of fact,
Wow.
that's the only time they've been able to win the district is through the playoff system.
Wow.
So this weekend provides them the biggest opportunity yet, because if they sweep La Cueva and Sandia, they will win their first ever outright district title and be the number 1 seed for the District 2 5A tournament.
How crazy
Even
is that? When you
I
think of
know,
Santa Fe
man.
High, you think of all the great things that they do at that school. You think basketball first, and that
Yeah,
they've never won a district
absolutely.
champion.
Never
That's
never won a outright district title. As a matter of fact, I even went so far back as to find it was 1960 the last time that they actually won the district, what you would consider a true district title.
mm,
Because I know once they started the 4 class system, you went with the district champion, and then you'd have your tournament champion or whoever made it to the championship game. That would qualify up until about 20 years ago when they changed the system up. But even during that stretch, they didn't win the district tournament title. And back then, from pre 1969, the only way you got to state was through the district tournament. You didn't even
yeah.
have the district champion from the regular season make it in. So that kind of shows you the significance of this. 65 years it would be that Santa Fe High has not won an outright district title when you
And
look at it.
if you'd have told me that the chance of winning one, the first one would come in a district with Sandia and La Cueva, I'd have
Cueva,
thought you
yeah,
were
yeah,
insane.
it's really it's really amazing what they've done. And they almost they almost choked it away on Friday. They had to come back from 10 down against El Dorado to beat them by 1 to have this shot. But these are clearly the 2 toughest teams in the district next to Santa Fe.
Mhm.
um they went to La Cueva 2 weeks ago and beat them by 10. So obviously they've got a better shot of beating La Cueva than they do Sandia. But if they beat La Cueva, it sets up basically a winner takes all situation on Friday night in Toby Roy Ball against Sandia, with the winner being the outright district champ and the other team being the 2 seed. There is the outside chance that if Santa Fe High loses to La Cueva and then beats Sandia, we would have a 3-way tie for the district, which would be apropos for Santa Fe High, because that's how they win their district titles. They never do win it outright. So, but there's a lot at stake, and Santa Fe High has been playing some pretty solid ball. I shouldn't say good. They've been solid, good enough to
Mhm.
win games, but not necessarily enough to dominate. But they're going to have to play their 2 best games of the year this week in order to make that happen.
Boy, an outright district championship would mean a lot when it comes to postseason seeding
Yeah,
too.
exactly.
Given the weight that the selection committee puts on that sort of thing. So, look, you can love the Demons or hate them, but Santa Fe is a better place to be when Santa Fe High plays pretty tough basketball.
They do. Yeah,
It just feels different when they play well. So,
yeah,
it,
and
it, yeah, in a year where St. Mike's should win state and have Santa Fe High as a contender in 5A, that would make March a lot of fun.
it would, and I think if they're able to sweep this week, I think this really puts them right there, at least top 5, maybe even a top 4 seed going into the state tournament, which would be huge. Although
Yeah.
I know that the problem with that is eventually you're going to have to run into Volcano Vista if you're one of those even seeds, because you're going to see them either in the quarters or in the semifinals. And right now, Santa Fe is probably right on the bubble of being in a 7 seed. Right now, they're probably an 8 if you look at it. So, um, if they could knock Sandia off, regardless of how it happens, whether they beat La Cueva or not, if they knock off Sandia, that's going to be a huge feather in their cap and
Mhm.
could help propel them into that 6-7 range at worst. At best, maybe they end up a 4 or 5 seed, but then that means you still got to go to you'll still have to see Volcano in the semifinals the week of the state tournament and everything. But hey, at that point, getting the top 4 seed is a really big accomplishment for a program that I don't think a lot of people thought they were going to do much this year outside of maybe getting to state.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think there's kind of a defeatist mentality in Santa Fe when it comes to playing at the highest level of high school
Yeah,
sports, that you're always running into the Albuquerque teams. But if there's any big school program that comes out of Santa Fe that can hang with those guys, it's always been Santa Fe High basketball. And so
yeah,
it's good to see them actually not just competing with them, but winning games for once. It's a good thing, especially after football. We all sat through football season.
Oh man, that was rough.
Watching
Yeah.
them getting their heads caved in every single week. So to go from that to this really shows, first of all, the health of the Santa Fe High basketball program. And two, it just reinforces the idea that Santa Fe is truly a basketball town. It just
No,
always has been.
it totally is. It totally is. And speaking of basketball town, we're going to keep it here in Santa Fe again with the 3A side. This week there's not really a lot of drama for St. Mike's if they're
Mhm.
playing tonight against Las Vegas Robertson. Tonight being Tuesday when we do this podcast. And really it's as simple as this: they got to win one of their last two games, and they're going to be the district champs. And really, they can take care of business tonight by beating Las Vegas Robertson. But with that said, the bigger issue then becomes the runner-up seed or the runner-up spot into AAA, because then it'll come down to the matchup on Thursday, in which Robertson plays Indian School in Vegas, and Indian School's already beaten Robertson once. If they sweep them here, they'd finish tied for second, but Indian School would get the 2 seed because they have the sweep over the Cardinals. And so in that situation, then you could potentially see Robertson, who I think everybody kind of feels like they're either a 2 or a 3 seed right now, could fall to a 4 or maybe even a 5 seed and find themselves aligned with St. Mike's, maybe as early as the semifinals.
That'd be worst case scenario for St.
Yeah,
Mike's to run into either the Indian School or Robertson in the state semifinals. But look, when we're in some ways we're kind of splitting hairs here because St. Mike's is rolling. They've got
yeah.
things going on right now. They head into the state tournament regardless of what happens Tuesday night. They're the clear favorite in 3A. They just have the depth and the chemistry on that team is off the charts and at that 3A level. But Robertson, man, for all the problems that school's had, to have them still be considered somewhat of a contender right now shows you that the talent that they have on hand. Maybe look, if they can find some sort of magic button and push it, they could be. Who knows? Maybe funny things happen in March. Now
No,
you
it
don't
is.
really see a huge amount of upsets in high school basketball, but I don't know if it necessarily be an upset if Robertson can make a run come state tournament time, because they certainly have the personnel to do that.
No, they certainly do. But I think the biggest problem that they have is, again, you mentioned it with St. Mike's. They have, incredible size, incredible depth. They're a very fast team, and they want to play up tempo. Robertson, they want to play up tempo, but they have neither the size nor the depth to match up with St. Mike's. It's really going to take a game where they just shoot lights out and maybe catch St. Mike's on a bad day. And I mean, we've seen it happen before, especially on that pit floor. I think we remember 6 years or 8 years, was it 7 years ago, when St. Mike's was the consensus number one. They went into the semifinals against Indian School, a team that they'd beaten 3 times, and they
Mhm.
played them in the pit floor. And Indian School had their number at the right time.
Yeah.
So those things can happen. It's just simply a matter of when do you catch them, when do you catch them on their off night. And there's no worse place to have your off night than on the pit floor.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and as we wind down, it's still the same story that we talked about last week with girls basketball. There's just not a lot to talk about in terms of teams from the Santa Fe area in the state playoffs, which is just, it feels weird. It feels weird to know that we're going to be going into late February, early March without really a team to look at. Look, West Las Vegas is good. I'm sure the Indian School will make some hay, but
They will.
it's a
And
nice
Robertson too.
Robertson as well, but it feels different when the big three, Capital, St. Mike's, and Santa Fe High, aren't doing anything. So
Yeah, and that's really been the case for the last several years. In all honesty, probably even longer. I'd say go back to at least a decade.
yeah,
At least 10 years ago, Espanola with Cindy Roybal, they were one of the top teams in 4A, and they were constantly a presence in the quarterfinals and semifinals back then. But really, since Santa Fe High won the state title in 2014 on the girls' side, they really haven't been much of a factor on that end. And obviously, Capital the same way. I think and they're now going on 15 years where they haven't even made it to the state tournament.
yeah,
So they've been in a long struggle. Although I think there's some hope that maybe in the next 2 or 3 years they might be able to break that streak. And St. Mike's is, it's funny, they beat Indian School last week, playing maybe some of their best ball of the year, and then they turn around and they let a winnable game against West Las Vegas go by the wayside. I mean, they've got some athletes, but they kind of struggle against teams that can run and press and force you into turnovers, because taking care of the ball is not St. Mike's strength.
yeah. Well, it's going to be. Look, I think the dream scenario for us is to have Pecos boys make a run in 2A. We have St. Mike's and all the other teams from District 2 AAA and 3A. Then you
Mhm.
have Espanola and potentially
Oh,
Powake
yeah.
making noise in 4A, and then you have the Demons in 5A. So I think the boys basketball tournament's going to
Oh,
get a
it's
lot
definitely
of
gonna be
attention.
carrying it's gonna be carrying our water a lot for for March, so so
It cannot wait for that. But to get there, we have to go through this week, which is wrestling and swimming. So,
swimming, yeah, and it's almost like we're kinda saying the same thing about wrestling and swimming. Nothing against the kids that have an
mhm.
opportunity to win to win medals and to bring home trophies and stuff, but, it's kinda light pickings, I mean, for this weekend. I'll start with with from the wrestling side. Really, I think the 2 big stories that we'll need to follow is Santa Fe High has a 215-pound wrestler in the name of Leighton Opari, who is I believe he's the top seed in his weight class in 5A. He's got a great opportunity to win a state title for the Demons, and then West Las Vegas, both from a team and an individual standpoint. West Las Vegas has a team that's capable of winning the state title with 3 or 4 wrestlers that got a chance to win state titles. Chief among them is Cruz Martinez, who will be wrestling at 160 pounds, and he's the odds-on favorite to win that. For him to win his 3rd title in 4 years. But I mean, that's kind of what we're looking at. And I know on the girls' side, Milwaukee Valley has a girl at 145 who should be a favorite in her weight class. There's Jade Blackheart over at Los Alamos, and who moved up to 152. That she's going to be the 2 seed, and it might take a little bit of work for her to be able to repeat as a state champion. But it's those we don't have a lot of storylines to going in there that are going to be overwhelming.
One of my favorite things about the state wrestling tournament is how it's this visual mishmash when you walk into the event center in Rio Rancho, and it's just you've got what 6 or 8 mats laid out, and it looks like organized chaos. You walk
It
down to
totally
there,
is.
everything you have events going on from left to right, from north to south in that arena,
Mhm.
and it can
Nonstop,
be
pretty much
yeah,
from
it's a
like
yeah, it's like going to the balloon fiesta during a mass ascension on a weekend. Just the you're
except they
not
keep going up. It's like for 6 or 7 hours, it just keep going.
it's nonstop, and if you're sitting in the wrong place, you almost need a telescope to watch your favorite wrestler. But yeah, it's a state wrestling tournament. If you've never been, it's something. Just from a visual perspective, it's a lot of fun to go to.
It's a great event just from that standpoint because you can see so many different matches. But
Hmm.
man, sometimes if you're waiting on a certain match and you're not paying attention, boy, it could be done with just
It's
like that.
over. It's
And
over.
it's like you
Yeah,
can't go back and hit the replay button. So
yeah.
that's kind of it's kind of the downside to that. But it's just a great atmosphere, and really that first day, everybody's kind of jazzed up, and it's a pretty packed, arena there at the Rio Rancho Event Center, and it's just a wonderful atmosphere to be around. Even the championships are still pretty well attended.
Yeah, well, and speaking of that, there's a very claustrophobic venue for high school swimming, which
I
is
know.
the Albuquerque Academy Auditorium. First of all, parking's always a mess there, and then you walk in and you're basically in a greenhouse for 5 hours, and you come outside and it's freezing cold out. So you better make sure you take your defibrillator with you because there's a potential of getting shocked when you walk out of the building. But no, the state swimming meet, same thing every year. Look, since they combine all the classifications, it makes it extremely efficient. The tournament comes and
Yeah.
goes pretty quickly, but of course, all eyes, like they were last year. Ray Lee Hunt from St. Mike's,
Hmm.
such a competitor. So she's going to Duke to compete as a swimmer there. So she's the IM favorite. And she's
Hmm.
setting all kinds of records in the IM and the breaststroke, which is her specialty. She's got a qualifying time that is 8 seconds faster than the next closest person. Which
That's pretty
in
impressive.
which yeah, when you get down to it, there's a girl from Santa Fe High, Ruby Sala, who's the second
Hmm.
fastest qualifier. So you have the potential of having 2 Santa Fe kids in the same race competing for 1 and 2 spots. But
And
really,
you
it's
and
Rayleigh Hunt. It's just how
well,
fast they should do it.
and you missed the storyline for that. They're best friends.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Ruby and Ray Lee are fast friends, man. Everywhere I see them, wherever they're at, the other one's there. So
Well, you see them at the Horseman basketball games a lot since her brother's on the basketball team. You see them all the time.
that's
So
right.
yeah, there's some local swimmers that can they have the potential to make the podium, but by and large, the state swimming meet is an Albuquerque event where you have Albuquerque Academy. If you walk into the auditorium there, they've got so many banners where it's actually affecting the lighting. They start to block up. They're running out of space hanging from the rafters. It's between them and the traditional powers like La Cueva and El Dorado and Sandia, and then you get Hobbs that does well, Las Cruces. But for the most part, the Santa Fe contingent is individual pockets here and there. Maybe get a kid from Los Alamos, like Michelle Lowe. She's a swimmer from LA. She's competing in the 100 fly. She could potentially make the podium. And then there's a couple kids from Santa Fe Prep that can make a run. Really, we never really pay attention to the diving portion of it, because diving and
well, it's so subjective.
Yeah, well, it is subjective. Exactly, it's a judgmental thing. But there's actually two kids from St. Mike's who can compete for the 1 meter diving championship this weekend. It's Aubrey Clonkey. I hope I got her name right. And then Maya Sands, both from St. Mike's, teammates who should compete for at least one spot on the podium, if not both of them. So for once, I actually get to go and pay attention to diving, which I never really do. Usually they pause the entire event, and then you see kids go off the diving board for 10 minutes, and you're like, well, what was that all about? Then as soon as you make your way over to the diving podium, then that part's over, and then you go right back to the swimming. So yeah, it'll be it's a fun 2 days at the Albuquerque Auditorium, and I'm looking forward to it. It should be interesting.
Yeah, you get to clear up your sinuses a little bit too by being in all that humidity, man.
Well, I get to get out of here since my HVAC system is going to cost me an arm and a leg. I'm going to have to work overtime this weekend just to help pay for that. So, yeah, good times. Yeah.
Yeah, sure, man. Yeah. You should remind the viewers, how cold does it get whenever you don't have heat? Even in Albuquerque, it still gets cold.
Let's just say that when I got back from the Lobo basketball game on Sunday against Utah State, apparently that's when it happened, because I walked into my house and thinking, well, it's kind of a little chilly in here. Woke up Monday morning and it was 54 degrees in my house. Thinking, my first thought was, did I pay the gas bill? And it's like, yes, I paid the gas bill. It was just. And the second thought is, well, all right, let's hope there's not a gas leak, because I've had one of those, by the way. The gas leaks are never fun. But yeah, 54 degrees doesn't sound very cold, but when you're wearing gym shorts and a t-shirt, it can get a little chilly. So
is that your preferred attire when you go to Lobo games? Gym shirt and shorts?
Yeah, I actually dress up and wear pants, which is really weird. It's like, it just feels weird to wear pants now. If I could get away with wearing shorts every day, really all year round, which I mostly do, I would gladly do that.
Dude, you need to move to Phoenix, man. Then you don't have to worry about it.
Apparently, I can't live in Albuquerque anymore because the HVAC systems don't work in it, at least in my neighborhood. So. Good stuff, man. I tell you, I can't wait for March to roll around where the weather really gets awful. So.
Oh yeah. You think it's? I mean, we complain about the cold and everything, but man, when you factor in the winds that we usually get, especially on those days when it's like 50 degrees and it makes it feel 30, and you're out there at a track meet, oh god.
Well, this morning I was talking to my favorite college baseball player, and although the weather here in Santa Fe and Albuquerque is basically mid 50s and kind of nice. It's actually kind of nice out right now. There's that weird cold front. Yeah, it was 19 degrees today when they were out there working out for doing weights outside, and
then you take them outside to do weights.
Well, they've got a weekend series. They actually moved the series against New Mexico Highlands from Las Vegas to Portales.
That was a smart move.
Yeah, it's going to be in the 30s, which is, I can't think of anything more fun than sitting in a dugout in the shade when it's 30 degrees out and windy, because there's no
wind.
Yeah, there's nothing to stop the wind in Portales, New Mexico. It gets really, really cold there really fast. So yeah. My message to my favorite college baseball player was, well, good luck with that. So
it's not the same message that your HVAC guy just gave you too.
Right, exactly. Good luck with that. By the way, give me your wallet. I'm just going to take it with me.
Yeah, you don't need this anymore.
Yeah, there goes my Christmas bonus. Oh well.
Yeah. You mean all 50? Well, you don't even get $50. It's like you just you get a hearty handshake and a postcard, right?
No, I'll ask Matt Dulcide for money. I know Matt's got it rolling. I've seen the way Matt dresses. He's always walking around flaunting his expensive clothing. So,
well, that's why he's got so much money, because he's so frugal.
Right. Well, with that, we're going to end this one on a high note.
All
So
righty. Yeah. Yeah. That
it's
was definitely one of our finest hours, wasn't it?
we are definitely in the stretch run of basketball, and we're in basically championship mode for the next 3 weeks
Next 3 weeks. Yeah.
between this and then district tournaments. And then
Well,
we
except
get
for you,
into
because you still got to follow Portales. I mean, Highlands or not Highlands, Eastern baseball.
yeah, Eastern baseball, which is now 5-7. They've lost 5 in a row. They got swept over the weekend by West Texas A&M. So yeah, it's been a tough road for the Greyhounds, but yeah, the next 3 weeks are going to be a lot of fun. And then look, then you have the March Madness stuff right after that. Lobo
Yep.
basketball team, they'll be in the NCAA tournament. So
And get your brackets ready. I mean, a lot of
yeah,
people are going to be putting the Lobos in the Final Four because of you now.
yeah, they're going all the way. Yeah. So we will. I know we promised a guest. I'm going to blame James for not bringing on a guest. Usually he's in charge of stuff like that. So
Oh, sorry, man. I missed the boat on
yeah,
that.
yeah, I don't
I'll,
know anybody, so we're just going to have you line up guests next time.
that's all right. I'll have Matt be our guest. It's about time. He's been a part of this show for when we did it before, but he was
Mhm.
always the silent voice, the silent partner in this whole
Yeah,
relationship. People need to hear his insights.
yeah. He's the paranormal activity director for us. He's the ghost
Yeah,
behind the scenes. All right. So with that,
alrighty,
we're going to
man.
wrap up episode 2,
There
the
we
most
go.
watched podcast in the New Mexicans arsenal. So we're just going to keep building from there. And
All right.
yeah, we'll see what we have next week. Hopefully next week I'll be back in the studio with my banners behind me instead of the my
Was
plant,
it
which
was it
is
too cold there to do it? Is it like could you see like your breath and everything because it was that cold?
well, that and there's an HVAC guy be working right behind me. So
Oh,
you know,
there's that.
in
Oh,
there
that
with
would have
his
been a problem, man.
he's in there with his heavy machinery replacing my system. So
Oh yeah, grouting out your garage there. Yeah, that would have been a great. That'd have been a great sound
he
effect.
could have been our first guest. He could have asked me, "Hey, do you need this phalange to go back into the Johnson rod hole or something?" Like I don't know,
We
whatever.
could, we yeah, yeah. I could have turned this 40-minute podcast into a
Yeah,
90-minute one with that.
yeah, yeah. All right, folks.
All
Thanks
right,
for tuning in, and we will
take care.
see you a week from today.